I hope Bongino resigns. I hope he does. I hope Cash does as well, because that's the only thing that's ever going to save their reputation. And Bondi's done. These other two guys had some street cred, and the administration so far has used their street cred not to actually give credibility, but as cover, right?
Yes.
Which is a big problem, man. And if I were either one of those dudes, I would be pissed.
The Epstein thing. Why is this such a divisive concept within the MAGA movement right now? People
think that we all learned our lesson from all the lockdown and Biden stuff because we reelected Trump, but clearly that's not the case. Clearly. Anybody that's arguing against publishing whatever we have on Epstein is full of shit, right? That's certainly not what they were saying 6 months ago when it was like on day one, on day one, on day one. So that person has either abandoned or never had principles. That's just how it is. They're what I would refer to as an intellectual pleb, right? They don't belong in the conversation. They need to be told what to think, frankly. And I think that's a sad reality, but that is what it is. And there's another example of it. We were all against omnibus bills 12 months ago. We were fighting hard to make sure that never happened again. And we were promised it would not, at least in this term. And now it's awesome because Trump renamed it. I'm sorry, that logic doesn't track for me. You are either principled or you are not principled. That is it, right? There's no time sensitivity to principles. It's either a true thing or it's not a true thing. And the ultimate version of audience capture is politics, right? These people try to persuade you in certain ways, but they also run opinion polls, right? And if the broader public takes a stand against something, then they will back off of it. And I'll tell you, there's been a pretty recent example of it happening. A lot of people in a lot of big cities let their businesses get shut down. They let their kids get kicked out of schools for, months at a time, all this stuff. And they just took it. They complained on social media, but they took it. But then when the Biden administration under DHS tried to stand up this governance disinformation board that was basically like an online censorship program inside of our federal government, everybody from the left to the right said, nope, we're not doing that. And it went away. That woman got fired. By the way, she works for the British government doing the exact same thing now.
I know.
So you can see that the power of in the first season of Game of Thrones, the king is like, what's stronger, 5 or 1? And she's like, 5. And he goes, 5, 1, right? So a fist is quite a bit stronger than an open hand. And that is what the resounding no from Americans sounds like. So the solution to this stuff, this MAGA split, is that you need to understand logic and reason. Probably go read some of the things that Aristotle had to say or Marcus Aurelius had to say. Those are two very important figures, and Seneca as well. And in that specific space, those three people are very good to look into, and then maybe study some civics so you actually understand how our government works. And because right now you're having a conversation about stuff that you just don't understand, frankly. I think that's a big problem. And you can see it in this. You mentioned Dave Smith and some of these other guys, but it's just the anti-war side. And I don't think nobody is truly anti-war. I don't believe that, right? Because if I brought war to your house, you would be pro-war in an instant, right? So it's just a matter of defining terms and just war theory and stuff like that, which they also have no concept of. But it does show, I'll say this, it shows the damage that George W. Bush's administration did to this country. They so misused the trust of the American public that we can't look at a country like Iran, who has been for years threatening to destroy our civilization and has bombed our Marine Corps barracks and has been the #1 state sponsor of terrorism globally, and say, well, we can't let them get nukes. That seems like a pretty reasonable thing. The entire world agrees on this, by the way. I don't even think China and Russia want them to get nukes. They're just using it to keep us wrapped up over there, right? That would be not great. So it's like you have your personal opinions on stuff and your education in life. It's all going to inform these opinions. So, which is why you need to get more of those things, right? The more data you get, the better off you're going to be when you're making these decisions. it is completely unreasonable to think that, Iran should be allowed to have nuclear weapons. That's crazy. I honestly don't think anybody actually believes that. I think some people are just being contrarian for its own sake. But the other point you made was about Qasem Soleimani. It wasn't just the fact that Iran didn't retaliate. It's that they called us and said, here's what we're going to do. They did it in 2020 as well, by the way. Mm-hmm. Like it was broadcast that they called Qatar to let them know where they were going to hit before, but they did it in 2020 as well, reported on it at the time. Same exact scenario happened. And the reason is because they don't, in fact, have escalatory dominance in the region, which is what Smith and all of these other people said. Tucker Carlson said it. All these people were like on and on and on about this, all the tragic stuff that was going to happen. And it was a complete and utter failure of understanding that situation. And now it's like the way that they responded to that was not humility, which is something that really bothered me. The way they responded to it was like, oh no, us belly aching on Twitter is what stopped Trump from launching a ground invasion. Like, are you out of your fucking mind? You can't possibly believe that. So to, I guess reunify this, this group of people that came together to stop Kamala Harris from really setting us on the wrong course. This same group of people agreed on a lot of different stuff. They agreed on getting all these illegals out of the country, right? Mm-hmm. They agreed to not add to the debt, which we're doing now, but maybe short term, we'll see. I mean, anybody that's run a business knows that sometimes you got to dig a little deeper to get out. That's just the way it is. It's the Fabian strategy, if you want to call it that, from war. But sometimes you got to go a little deeper to get out. We'll see how that works. I'll reserve judgment on that. I don't like how it's gone so far, but I'll reserve my final judgment on that. And the other thing was exposing the corruption. Not one person who is involved in any of this corruption has been brought to heel. Not one person, except for this woman who trafficked a bunch of people to nobody, apparently. Right. Yeah. Right. So like, if you want me to trust you as a leader, as somebody who's going to tell me the truth, you sure as shit can't lie to my face. We know for a fact. And Mike Benz, by the way, has done great work articulating all this stuff. Yeah. But we know for a fact that Epstein's relationship with the CIA began back during the Iran-Contra scandal, where he was providing financial services to Adnan Khashoggi. We have decades of files on this dude. And the State Department literally leased second largest residence in all of New York City for him. Don't lie to my face. Tell me anything. Say, because you remember how the stories change over time. The files are on my desk. We can't put it out because we're prosecuting people. We don't want that to get out, blah, blah, blah. Story change. If this were a court of law, this person would be completely disgraced by now. All of them, right? So, I understand Bongino. I think he's a good dude, actually. And I think Cash is a good dude as well. I think they're being strong-armed right now, and they're being pushed out into the limelight to take the hit. I hope Bongino resigns. I hope he does. I hope Cash does as well, because that's the only thing that's ever going to save their reputation. And Bondi's done. Like, in my opinion, I bitched about Bondi getting nominated in the first place because she's the architect of red flag laws in Florida. What the fuck are we thinking, right? That was never a good choice. But these other two guys had some street cred, and the administration so far has used their street cred not to actually give credibility, but as cover, right? Yes. Which is a big problem, man. And if I were either one of those dudes, I would be pissed.